Today we're here to talk about something that's very important to music, the vocal. A lot of people don't listen to music unless it's got some kind of a human voice on it. And knowing that, we put voices on a lot of our music that we recorded together, Ulrich and myself. So we're going to play some music from a very vocal-heavy album that I did called Galacticon that came out in between Death Album 2 and 3. And it's a very, it's a record that I wanted to, I like very melodic music, and with Death Clock, the vocal is a guttural death metal vocal, and I don't really get to put any melody inside of that vocal, but I wanted to do a whole project for the kind of songs that I thought were a little too melodic for Death Clock. And so I got together with Ulrich, and we recorded the drums with Gene Hoglan and the bass with Brian Beller. And then I took all the sessions. If you were watching yesterday, you see the whole trajectory of how we start with an idea, record the guitars, record the bass, and all that stuff. And now we get to the part where we're at the vocals. In this case, I took all the vocals home, and with Ulrich's help, I set up a good microphone, set up a way to record vocals, and then started hacking away at it. And when I say hacking away, I really mean hacking away. It's really hard to do vocals by yourself. It's a really miserable process, I'll say. I'd say even worse than rhythm guitars.
Well, doing vocals is hard.
Yes.
If it was easy, everybody would be doing it.
Yeah.
And the people who are doing it, who don't think it's hard, well, there's a lot of bad vocals out there.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And,
exactly.
and the internet is full of them.
Right.
But it is, I think the hardest part of vocals is, or for a vocalist, is to do something that is a very, very hard and taxing thing to do and make it look easy.
Right.
And especially live. Because it's a full body, intense thing. I mean,
very much
you
so.
get very tired. You only have a very limited time that you are like at 100%.
Right, that makes sense.
And so you, like people, we get guys in that say, oh, I can do vocals for 8 hours a day. It's like, I'm sure you can, but you're only really good for like an hour.
Right.
You know, where like the top stuff is coming out. Or you'll need to take breaks. And do again, but when you take breaks, you have to re-warm up and all that stuff. But
right,
it is
not easy. It's not fun.
It's not easy for anyone.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But they make it look easy because they're professionals, and that's their job.
I equate it to guitar playing too, where if I have a new piece of guitar playing that I've written that may not fit under my fingers perfectly, I'm gonna have to learn how to get it under my fingers. And with vocals, it's the same thing. Every time you do a new vocal thing, you have to retrain your voice to do that thing, and you're not necessarily comfortable. You're still learning the song. Plus, at the same time, I'm writing the melodies as I'm in the play, so I'm experimenting with weird nonsense language, which I think a lot of people do too, where they just start belting out syllables and weird things, and and then it's embarrassing for anyone else to hear. But normally I'm by myself at that point. The other thing is about the human voice is that yes, you have to be kind of engaged from your toes all the way to the top of your head, because the voice is, the way that I look at the voice is, it's like a big flesh-coated slide whistle, and it's really hard to get. If you've ever tried to make a slide whistle, play a melody on a slide whistle. It's like a trombone, and it's really hard to zero in on those places. And I learned a lot about vocals, and I got a little bit better after the Galacticon record, where I hadn't really sung seriously on a record before. I belted out percussion. I've used the voice as a percussion instrument, which is what Death Clock is. But this is a great way to learn how to do vocals is to record yourself doing vocals, and do stuff that's, I have stuff that's at the top of my range, and I try to exceed it, and I can maybe do it on one note and belt it out, and then it's really interesting to try to take this stuff and try to get it up on its feet live too, because that will teach you a lot about phrasing and when to breathe and when not. And on this record, I didn't necessarily take that into consideration, but that's how I heard the melodies, and that's how I wanted to hear the melodies. And if I'm going to do it live, I have to have 6 vocalists with me, which we did one time. So anyway, that's the philosophy of singing and technique. We'll probably go over as we'll probably hit a lot of stuff, and if you guys have questions about that, we'll answer those later on too. But just about setting up a microphone and getting stuff ready. What's your take on that?
Well, the big question I get a lot of times is, what's the perfect microphone? Like for one thing, there isn't really a perfect microphone because everybody's voice is different.
Right.
So if you have the luxury to take time and find like the perfect microphone for that singer, like if you have a microphone locker full of microphones, then by all means have at it and go for it and find that microphone, but don't do it at a time when the singer's ready to like lay down amazing vocal takes.
Right.
You know, so my trick that I do when I record a full band, usually, you know, we do basic tracks and then guitar overdubs and bass overdubs and all that. It's a process. It's a several day, week-long process, or you know, several weeks or what have you. In order for the singer not to get cold and lose his voice from touring or pre-production, whatever, I have him come in every day and lay down a couple of tracks on different microphones.
Right.
Just rough vocals, just for him to keep his chops, stay warm, stay limber, and that way I can test out 2 or 3 microphones each day and compare which ones work for him, which ones don't, and by the time we actually are ready to record vocals, we have it all worked out.
Now, to get a little bit more specific with kind of the idea of what is the right microphone for the right voice, it's almost like everyone has a different timbre of voice. Some of it's nasally, some of it's bassy, some of it's somewhere in the middle, and sometimes a microphone grabs certain frequencies a little bit better. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, a microphone.
Yeah.
They have a frequency response of a microphone that can either complement or not complement the vocal, the sound of the voice. Like with any instrument, you know. So if you do have the time and the luxury to find that perfect microphone for that situation, it's not a perfect microphone period. It's a perfect microphone for that situation. Then by all means, try it out and find it, because it'll make your recording that much better.
Yes.
But
yes,
if you have somebody with an idea that needs to be put down, and you have a singer that's ready to go, and he's gonna put down the perfect, the most amazing vocal takes right now, the microphone that is set up where the singer is right now, that's the perfect microphone at the time, because it's really, when a singer wants to sing, everything stops and you start singing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like that.
You gotta do it.
That's like one of the few rules of recording.
That makes sense. One other thing I think that keeps coming up with Ulrich and myself as we talk about all this equipment, from the Universal Audio preamps and the compressors to the Marshall amps to the Les Paul to the Boss pedal thing to everything else that's on that desk, is that it's really hard, I noticed, before entering into this world of professional music, it's really hard for us musicians or us recording people to get our hands on this stuff and to mess around with it, and to get our hands on different microphones and mess around with it. Only when I started kind of having a career in this business did I get to mess around with a Marshall Plexi versus a JCM 800 versus a Bogner Shiva versus, you know, a Vox AC30, and hear all the tonal differences, hear the differences between these old kind of PAF pickups versus Seymour Duncans versus, like now I swap out pickups and I get different companies sending me really cool pickups, and I get to hear the different tonal qualities. We don't always get to do that stuff, because our only chance to really do that is at Guitar Center, and it's noisy because people are playing Eruption all the time. So we have to make our way through that, and we don't get a clear understanding of how everything sounds. But microphones, if you are lucky enough to have your own studio, you know, I wish there were like a swap out program at Guitar Center or Sam Ash where you could just try a different microphone every week. Maybe there is somewhere.
You know, a lot of places have buy the microphone and check it out, or any gear, and if you don't like it, return it.
It's worth doing that stuff to really get some FaceTime with it, because that will help you understand what you love about certain microphones. Now, for example, I have some really cool tube microphones at home. I've got an okay collection of microphones, and A different producer, Jay Rustin, who does a lot of the Anthrax stuff, said, you got to check out this one microphone. It's a C1 studio condenser from whatever, I don't know what the company is, but it says C1 studio condenser microphone. And he says, this may really work with your voice for some reason. I don't know why he said that. Maybe it's just because he has it at his place. But I like this one microphone. What I heard from this, and I use it on this record, is that I have a nasally sounding voice. You can hear me as I speak, that it's kind of like, it's higher in my nose, skull cavity area. And when I sing, I can hear a lot more of that, and it gets a little reedy sounding. And what this microphone does is it carves the EQ a little bit. It takes a little bit of the top nasally quality of my voice out and it makes it sound a little bit more velvety, a little bit smoother sounding. And that's the reason I gravitate towards that microphone. And plus it's there and it's set up. But when I go to a cleaner, more crisp sounding microphone, and I think I have a tube microphone that is that, it's too much frequency. It's too much of the top end that I don't want to hear, and I know I'm going to be asking you to carve that away.
Sure, yeah.
But going straight from that into my 6176, and we'll get into the pre's and all that stuff. But going into that's the sound I want to hear without any EQ, without any effects, without anything. That sounding microphone, the C1 studio condenser. So that's one of my things, and I'm sure you've got a favorite microphone that you like to go to first.
Yeah, I mean, you always have like your favorites that you want to try first because that seems to work for you a lot of times. But if it doesn't work for you, change it out and experiment. To go back to like the microphone trials that I do with bands, sometimes you stumble upon things that you would have never thought would happen, because that happened with Static X at some point, and with Wayne, may he rest in peace. He wanted to do these vocal trials every day just to keep his voice going, and we ran out of microphones after a while. So we ran out of plausible vocal microphones, until and we're just like, well, just plug in these other things that we usually do not use on vocals for whatever reason.
Right.
And we stumbled upon one that complemented his voice so well that it was really fascinating, and we just stuck with it.
Do you remember what that was?
I think it was a Coles ribbon mic.
Okay, so it's a ribbon mic, which is intended mostly for...
We used it mostly on rooms. It's the thing that looks like a mitt almost, and it's a dark sounding mic, but Wayne at that time had really a scratchy thing on top of his voice, and it just attenuated that really nicely.
Right.
And
again,
that ended up being our thing,
Yeah.
So it's not always the that's not a cheap mic, but it's not always like the flagship, obvious, expensive vocal mic that you need to have. Especially not for singers that don't play guitar, don't play any instruments, that hold their microphones live.
Right.
And that's when the body as the vocalist really becomes apparent, because you put your body into a position to hit these notes. Like for instance, like maybe a guy goes like really compresses the whole body to reach these super high notes.
Right.
As a micro, like it does a thing like this. You can't do that when the microphone is up here.
Right.
And so he can't sing comfortably.
So you've got to take that in consideration.
You have
when a performer is used to holding his own microphone, and the actual position of your body and the holding of the microphone is part of the instrument, then you've got to consider that in recording. So what do? You have somebody hold a microphone in the studio?
You just use a handheld microphone, because that is part of what needs to happen to that body to sing the way he sings.
Now, I know there's another part. I'm sorry, I don't know. You're going to say something else?
Yeah, conversely, it's the other way around. Somebody who plays guitar while they sing, they might need to actually have the guitar strapped on to get their singing done right. I distinctly remember a guy who was very excited about doing his vocals. We set it up real nice. We went through the trial of getting the perfect microphone. Everything was awesome.
Yeah.
And he was ready to do his vocals, and he couldn't hit a note. And I was like, he just basically was borderline crying.
Right.
And we really tried everything. We tried also, we'll go into that a little bit later, but we tried everything. And
that band was Metallica. Go on.
The one thing that was different was that he was not playing guitar while he was singing. He was a guitarist that sang, a singer that played guitar. We set up the Marshall cab, we put his guitar on him, and he played the song while he was singing it. Perfect.
Yeah.
As soon as he stopped, he was off.
Sometimes Dumbo needs the magic feather in order to fly, but he could fly the whole time. He really could. So that's an interesting thing. So, but I mean that's an interesting. We haven't talked about that at all, which I think is an important thing, and it kind of goes into. We can go back into this, but you can go a little crazy in the studio, and a little scared when you see the red recording light, and that's something you have to find your way around. And you, as a producer, have to talk him off the ledge, talk him into performing, because this is not a natural. I mean, until you become a studio rat, which is something that you and I have become over the years, you're not at home in the studio. You're still kind of finding your way, and you have to feel as comfortable on a stage or in your bedroom as you have to be that comfortable in the studio. Another thing I noticed that you do, I don't do it as much, but I've seen other people do it, and I know you do it, is you sometimes put the person in the isolation booth, and sometimes you bring them into the studio and you sing in the studio with a handheld, with a 57 or whatever it is, with quiet studio monitors, and the person's belting it out and singing along in the room.
Yeah, again, it speaks to comfort and communication and just overall approach. We're not talking a lot of bleed into the microphone at that point. You know what I mean? That's always the big fear, is like bleed into the microphone from the speakers. But you know, some of these headphones are open and they bleed into the microphone as well. And you know, it's at the end of the day, it's a lot easier to fix a bad sound than it is to fix a bad performance.
Right.
You know, to a point. Obviously, if you've really fallen off the cliff with a bad sound, like you're kind of stuck with it. But
there will probably be a little bit of bleed in headphones.
There always is, you know.
I noticed in my stuff.
Yeah,
on the first Death album, I recorded all the vocals in my apartment in Los Angeles, and I had hardwood floors, and you could hear my dog walking in the background as I'm doing Nathan Explosion's voice. You can hear, if you isolate tracks, you can hear my dog's little fingernails tap dancing around, just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Yeah.
And you know, I was fortunate enough to hear Michael Jackson's vocal soloed.
Yes, there's a documentary that showed that. Go ahead.
And you hear him clapping and like his whatever
he's got. He's got like all this jewelry on.
It's just, you know, it's a big
jangling track. But yeah, you never hear that stuff, or it's just.
It adds. It kind of adds to the excitement of the track somehow or another, because there's actually a person singing there as opposed to this really sterile environment that is really not musical.
Right, that's true. It's true. That's a good point. You want to make it not sterile. You want to make it feel comfortable and fun.